All right. We're moving on, right? Okay.
Let's get right to Seinfeld. Wait a minute.
Yeah, right to Mr. Seinfeld.
Wait a minute. Gotta show the dumpster.
Got to. Oh boy. All right. So how do we even start with Jerry Seinfeld? It's been quite a few weeks for him and his wife recently. So
yeah, I think the people walking out on him is kind of
just to set it up.
Yeah. So he made the news this week, obviously, because the college grad. He spoke at a college graduation for, goddamn, he spoke forever.
At Duke. But wait, why? Where is it? I don't see it here. Did it get erased?
He wouldn't shut up. Oh, it's not on there. Well, all right.
I'm going to load it while you're explaining. Quick.
But he spoke, and there was a lot of entitlement in his speech as well. It wasn't terrible. It was kind of trying to give lessons to people, but just life lessons and old guys passing down to young kids. But
it was okay. I mean, it was like the framing of don't be embarrassed about your privilege. I mean, he kind of tried to turn it on his head. And, the shame of it is there was, as you said, some nuance and some humor in it even. But again, this comes on the heels of his wife and he giving at least $5,000 to the counter protesters who bashed people's heads in at the peaceful encampment that had been 100% peaceful. And then this group of Zionist, counter protesters infiltrated UCLA campus and were allowed in front of the campus police to batter the peaceful protesters, to try to, take apart their encampment, hitting them on heads with planks, tear gas in their eyes, launching fireworks like into their encampment, and playing that awful torture music that the IDF plays.
And to encourage that, even if you support Israel, you're encouraging people to attack protesters, essentially. And here's a GoFundMe by a bloody damn near billionaire from Seinfeld.
He's a billionaire.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw him once driving his little Gullwing Porsche around, which is kind of wild. But anyway, here he is, this uber rich guy raising money for people to be on the other side of attacking college kids. And his whole speech, it was okay. It wasn't terrible, but it did reek of like not understanding that people don't have the liberty necessarily of just chasing their dreams and finding the money afterwards. Like he's telling these kids that are graduating college with $150,000 in debt to just follow the bliss and the money will come. Well, you had that liberty.
Yeah.
These kids don't, because that's not the generation that we're in now.
Yeah. Yeah. So
this is still good advice if you can do it.
It's good advice without any realism. Like, yes, follow your bliss. God, we should all be so lucky. That's what we should all be able to do. But we need to fight for certain structural changes or huge systemic changes. I feel like that it always sounds like Elizabeth Warren when I say that. That's not a big structural change. But yeah, he has absolutely no cognizance of what people are actually facing. And actually, there was a documentary years ago, which is when I first sort of started feeling like a little weird about him. I think it was in 2000 maybe, and it was on comedians, and he was already wildly famous and rich. And one of the up and coming comedians was interviewing him and sort of had that same question, like, well, what do you do if you also want like a house and a wife and kids and a little bit of financial security? Like, did that ever make you concerned? And he really was so derisive to somebody even asking that question and dismissive. And I mean,
that tracks.
Yeah. Like I think he's a talented writer if he wrote that show. I don't think he's like a brilliant comedian, but that show, had some really good moments that maybe were all because of Larry David, who knows? But also, listen, we've all known, like, I've been out here now for over 3 decades. I know brilliant artists, actors, writers, directors who aren't working, who had to leave, who lost everything. And then there are also brilliant people who make it. And then, of course, on both sides, there are people who aren't brilliant. But like, there's a ton of luck involved. And so to act so dismissive to somebody's very valid concerns, yeah.
Yeah, and let's not forget, I mean, obviously, it's over the Zionism is the real reason he was called out on this.
I do have that students walking out, though, just so you know.
Oh, you found it. All right.
It's
So
a brilliant video.
You, blah, 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 doesn't serve in the IDFs. So this is the propaganda they put out, that the people that left the commencement speech, graduation ceremony, did it because they're bigoted students. And
they hate Jews.
I'm told a Jew.
Right.
It's like, just like Hamas stuff started on October 7th, this reaction to Jerry Seinfeld happened today or yesterday.
Right.
Not because of his funding of the IDF,
right.
Not because of this lovely fantasy camp. Should we show the
yeah. Yeah, sorry. This has surfaced. And this was before. This was in like what, a few years ago. I think it was in 2018 or 2019. But like we all know
propaganda for Israel.
Say again.
He's doing propaganda for Israel, the Israeli military.
Yeah. And like some fantasy about shooting Palestinians. So this is him and his family at this IDF terrorist camp.
The enemy, you know, something big. Off target and working as a team. But that.
Yeah, so they go, you know, it's just been really fascinating to see how entrenched the fear is in so many American and Israeli Jews. There is a constant fear of, if we don't do it first, if we don't genocide them first, they're going to genocide us. And I mean, that is a long-term Zionist project. And of course, it comes out of a kernel of, not a kernel, more than a kernel, like a Holocaust and, you know,
Right.
millennia of being persecuted. I'm not denying that, but like Jews in America are not persecuted.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, is just like, you know, I drive around with my black boss every day in our truck, and I'm like, he gets racism every damn day, almost, like on some level.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when we'll go to a job and I work for him, but the people will just talk to me like I'm the boss.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you know, he gets that. I know Mexican people, friends get it. Chinese Americans get it. You know, all these people get some real in your face racism. Doesn't mean anti-Semitism isn't real, but the majority of Jewish people passes white. I
Right.
mean, most of the time.
Right.
So like this whole, like, people just hate you because you're a Jew. I mean, I don't want to rank the
Yeah.
racism, but like there should be some proportionality to the response to it, to how much your government reacts to it. And,
Yeah.
you know, the idea that these protesting kids are assaulted by seeing a tent,
Right.
when you've got black
When-
kids pulled over, stop and, you know, frisk and
Killed
all
by
these racist
cops
policies that have been
in
around
jail.
forever.
Right.
Nobody's,
Denied housing.
the government isn't going after Jewish people, you know.
They aren't now. I mean, of course they were, but they aren't now in that same way. And you know, it's really hard, because I think probably for older Jews and a lot of younger Jews, like it's still very fresh, things that they lived through. I mean, you know, it's different because people would say things in front of me not knowing I was Jewish, and they would say horribly, anti-Semitic things about their landlord or whoever, or, ask me where I kept my tail, things like that. But it is different. Like, it is just different. I think a lot of people deal with people who are bigoted or racist. I mean, Irish Americans, Italian Americans, like everybody has a different thing that other groups might think about them, right? But it is not the same as you said, people who wear their differences so clearly, like,
And I don't think there's institutionalized racism against Jewish people is what I'm kind of going at. That's part of it. And also just, like as a white guy, I've run into so many white people in my 53 years on earth here that are just comfortable dropping racism to me like it's nothing.
Yeah.
And, maybe once or twice somebody blamed Jewish people for controlling the government or something, but that wasn't like, look at that Jewish person, they're the problem. It had a different, it's different.
It's like, more that they're the evil rulers of the world.
Yeah, it's like it's a different
it's a different horrible
racism. Yeah. It wouldn't be like, I don't want my kid to marry a Jew, but I've heard how many white people would just in your face saying, I'd never let my daughter date a black guy or something like that. It is different. So
it is different. And again, like I kind of want to go back to like, I don't really love the oppression Olympics. Like, I feel like everybody does have different suffering and has gone through different horrors or hasn't, or, whatever it is. But I think that to build so much of an identity on how we're always persecuted, how we have to live in fear, how there's only one nation in the world where we're really safe, which it's insane to say that nation is Israel and not the US, but okay.
But you only have so many people come to those same probably irrational beliefs, right? If it's taught to you, it's very much the Hasbara. It's very much strategize. It's very much
demonization of everybody around you. Yeah,
it's very much Frank Luntz directly with how they programmed our politicians to react to all this stuff. So your entire life as an American Jew, you're taught the same stuff. You're taught to be a victim, and you need to survive, and we need Israel, and everything we do is justified.
And there's a fair amount with Zionists, especially at the beginning, and I think now it's continued over the last 7.5 decades, of blame on the Jews in Europe who were victimized and slaughtered and exterminated for being too weak. I think that's part of the whole mentality, is we will never be that again. We will be the strongest people here, which is, if you read somebody like Philip Roth and Portnoy's Complaint, and there was a lot about, it was an American Jew going to see Israelis, and they were all strong and virile, and even the women were stronger than he was. And there's this sort of like mythical building up of this is what we have to be to survive. And anybody who criticizes any of this is anti-Semitic. And if that's how you go through life, first of all, that's horrible, and you're wrong, because that's not why people are upset with Seinfeld. But that's all they can hear. And so if you are wearing a keffiyeh, or if you're saying free Palestine, what they hear is, what that means is genocide of the Jews. And if that is, it's like when we always say, everybody always says, every accusation is a confession. And it really is, because the truth is that is right now what Israel is wanting to do, is to exterminate the Palestinians. So they're not mad at him because he's Jewish. They are those Duke students who walked out when he was announced and got up to the pulpit or the dais or whatever. They left because they did not want to have to listen to somebody who helped fund
to this.
Yeah, that guy. That is him at the IDF camp, which, by the way, is in occupied West Bank. Where
so to even go there, you have to be Jewish and pass checkpoints, and
And, you know, I mean, I know we've talked, you know, we all know the same things, but, you know, 2023 was the deadliest year for Palestinians in the West Bank on October 6th. It was already the deadliest year since they started keeping records of that. So
Yeah.
that's why. But anyway,
All right. Well, we're gonna get into. I mean, I think we're done with the worst of the
yeah.
week.
Did you
Look.
want to hear his take on comedy? It's only 40 seconds. Are we done?
Sure,
Should we just
let's
move
hear it.
on?
I'll give you my take on him.
Okay.
Nothing really affects comedy. People always need it. They need it so badly, and they don't get it. It used to be you would go home at the end of the day. Most people would go, oh, Cheers is on. Oh, MASH is on. Oh, Mary Tyler Moore is on. All in the Family's on. You just expected there'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. Well, guess what? Where is it? This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people.
Mm-hmm.
When you write a script and it goes into 4 or 5 different hands, committees, groups, here's our thought about this joke, well, that's the end of your comedy.
I do agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Not for the guy who's doing the Pop-Tart movie.
committee stuff, and you know, people making movies, but on the other hand, we have more freedom for vile comedy as well. Like
Yeah.
there are funny things on, like Dave Chappelle. I mean,
Yeah.
right,
The whole
flag in
roast,
the
right?
face.
The Tom Brady roast.
I mean, Bill Barr, who just shredded
yeah.
Bill Maher on his own show. He's
Yep.
going to say whatever he thinks. You know,
Yeah. Feels like a real excuse.
creativity doesn't happen in committees, so that piece of it I understand a lot, but at the same time, like, honestly, he puts himself out as this guru who's the funniest, most upper echelon of comedians, and he was an average comedian.
Right.
His fame is from Seinfeld, and honestly, if you watch the Larry David show is Seinfeld. It's the
Right.
same continuation. Larry David was the genius behind Seinfeld, not Jerry
And I think the
Seinfeld.
supporting cast who were really good in that show. So
Yeah,
Seinfeld.
there were a lot of good people,
Yeah.
but it was not
Yeah.
Seinfeld's baby.
Yeah.
He was a
Was-
part of it. And to be honest, his little stand-up bits kind of detracted to, in my opinion, from the show.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think it was like, oh, he's just a normal everyday comedian. Like, that's
Right.
not very funny.
Yeah. I think
It's the show.
it's hard to take though, like, you know, of course he always has to say something about the extreme left, which everybody always does as he's going off to an IDF camp. But like, to take any thoughts on comedy from somebody who just wrote the Pop-Tart movie and then also did the B movie, it's just sort of hard to think that it's the extreme
Sellout.
left that's keeping him
Yeah, I mean,
suppressed.
it really has nothing to do with the left. It has to do with running things by committee. It has to do with corporations
Yeah.
homogenizing products.
Yeah.
And his product is being homogenized by, you know, Hollywood, basically. And it's also an excuse for his movie failing. Like, his newest movie is apparently bombing.
It's like the
And it's like,
pre-excuse.
oh, it's weird. He's out here now saying comedians can't make it.
Yeah.
But then
Because
he's
of
going
that-
to a commencement speech saying everybody can make it, just follow your bliss. And comedy will survive regardless, but woke comedy is killing us. And it's just
Yeah.
a mess. He's an elite bastard. And
Feels a
that's
lot
what-
like Bill Maher. Has a big Bill Maher vibe.